Okay, so just before you kick off there, Mary Beth, I wanted to make a couple of quick comments here because in this community we've always had the mission to not just to answer questions and deliver the Sermon on the Mount, so to speak, but also to engage with people in a practical way, on an ongoing way, and work through the process of actually getting change to happen. And we put together a sort of an experimental program with daily contact here. A 30-day program that's nearly 60 days old now, and it's a way of exploring on a daily basis how we change our lives, and so we're right in the throes of that, and we're going to do part 1 and part 2 of this call today, and next week we may make this an open call. We will make this an open call. What the hell? And we're going to have all of our channels and a guest channel, and we're going to have a bit of a fun time here as we explore the next phase of this discussion, how you change your world and so on. So it's going to be fun. If you're a member, you'll be with us. If you're not yet a member, or if you'd like to join the program, just click the links that we have there, and we'll catch up with you soon and have some fun. Okay, Mary Beth, over to you.
Sounds exciting. Hello and welcome to our Saturdays with Tara Hangout on Air. You're at the Law of Attraction Club on the web at theloaclub.com. This hangout is a summary of our theme for the week and will be followed by continued discussion and live Q&A on our member conference line. Then our 30-day participants, our Change Your World participants, will stick around for their check-ins. Today's topic, decisions, decisions, decisions. Part 1, how your choices define you and your world. You can get invites to our open calls, which we offer periodically by going to theloaclub.com. So now we're going to bring back Robin and Tara.
Okay. Here's what we see from our perspective. You and we exist timelessly across all realms. You and we are essentially the same thing. Just as we are, you're an idea. You're a thought form. You're an awareness. You're a consciousness. What do? Like we do, you think. You have desires. You make choices. You think a new you and a new matching context into existence. You have experiences. You make new choices. And new experiences lead to new desires, and so on. Your choices are limited only by your thoughts and by what we called last week your imagination. And imagination has no limits. So what does it mean to be limitless? When you're engaged in the details of daily existence, you might say, surely it's more useful to be focused on making just a few small changes in your world. And we can't disagree with that as a concept. It's just that to make even so-called small changes, it helps if you understand the mechanism of change. And once you understand that, the size of the change becomes irrelevant. So stick with us here and let's see if we can open up things for you. So you and we are all at our essence thinking entities. All of us are part of the collective consciousness of all that is. And we are all timelessly connected back to that source. You and we are 99% the same. Of course, there is no exact fraction here. But what we are saying is, essentially, we are the same type of entity. Where we differ is in the shape of our consciousness. Through an infinity of choices, you humans have narrowed the focus of your consciousness to one thing at a time in a time-based realm. And you have what we loosely call your subconscious. Your subconscious is 10,000 times more powerful than your consciousness. And it supports you on your adventure by handling all the details. And then there's what we'll once again loosely describe as your superconscious. And you can think of that as the extension of you that includes us and connects you to source. Of course, in the realm of thought, there are no borders or boundaries. And therefore, when we talk of you in three components, a conscious you and a sub and superconscious you, just bear in mind that while these are useful concepts to help you be aware that there's much more going on than the conscious you usually thinks about, they are approximations. And the borders between these components are fluid and permeable. And just as an aside here, think right now of holding your breath for 1 second. And notice that you can do that. In other words, what was previously unthought of as a subconscious controlled function, you can, if you like, step beneath that barrier there, that line that supposedly divides the two, and take over control of those subconscious functions. And the same applies to many of them. And that is what we mean by these borders are fluid and permeable. So right now, where and what do you perceive yourself to be? If your awareness of you begins and ends with the idea that you're a physical human being engaged in life on Earth, then your choices appear to be very limited. And they are not. Let's look today at the choices you make, consciously, subconsciously, and superconsciously. Let's look at what your options really are and a new way of playing the game. Today in part one, we'll look mostly at the conscious and subconscious components. And next week, we'll explore the outer galaxies of your superconscious. All of this, of course, being in service of helping you to see this adventure of yours in a new light and how you can play this game in new and exciting ways. So here's the way it works. The conscious you makes all the new decisions. And for the purposes of thinking about yourself and the decisions that you make, you can think of yourself as this conscious entity has made all the decisions about you, about your world, about everything. Every new decision creates a new version of you in a new matching context. So what we call your context, of course, is what seems to surround you. It includes a physical you in a physical world. It includes a non-physical world. All of that you create. All of that you have created by the choices you have made in this conscious entity that is you. The conscious you makes all the new decisions. The subconscious you watches and learns from you. and it takes over all the status quo decision-making. It's engaged with the mechanisms of a physical you navigating a physical world. It learns to walk you. It learns to talk you. You don't choose the words that you're saying. You have a thought you wish to express, and your subconscious provides the words. And it talks it in the accent depending on where you were growing up. And this one has an Australian accent. In this is his adopted country. Most have a quite different accent. And all of that is a function of the subconscious and the way it constructs the words and speaks them. It walks you, it talks you, it drives your car. These are things you cannot focus on from a conscious perspective. When you stand up and walk to the door, you don't choose where to put your feet consciously. Your subconscious does. You don't choose how you're going to balance and where you're going to walk to avoid objects. Your subconscious does. When you drive to the supermarket, you give very little thought to driving. Perhaps at one point in your journey, you'll pick which lane to drive into consciously. And that may be the extent of the total conscious engagement you have in driving to the supermarket. So can you see that the subconscious learns from you? When you say you learned how to drive, you didn't learn how to drive. You had seen many people driving. You knew how to drive a car. But there are many, many things you must be able to react to when you're driving a car. And you cannot do it all consciously. You can't think about where the brake is and where the accelerator is and how to use the turn signal indicator and the steering wheel and watch the traffic around you and so on and so on. The subconscious does it, and it does it magnificently. It does it brilliantly. It supports you, it learns from you, and it takes over all the status quo decision-making. It's a fantastic support mechanism for you. Then there's the superconscious you. It also responds to your decisions. It maintains these very components here we're describing, this sort of three components of you. It maintains the shape of you and your context and your connection to source. Likewise, it has learned from the choices you make, and it is providing to you the game that you are engaged within. And it allows you, a conscious you, to focus on the new stuff, on the new decisions. So what sorts of new decisions does the conscious you make? There are status quo choices. What will I cook for dinner tonight? Fish or chicken? What will I spend money on this month? What TV shows will I watch? These are status quo choices. Then there are choices that require the subconscious to learn new tricks, like you choose to learn to walk, which, as we've just described, does not mean choosing to learn to walk because you're watching people walk and you see how they walk. But the art of walking involves balancing on two legs and moving your legs in such a way that you can move from place to place. And all of that takes an enormous amount of CPU cycles in your brain, in your mind, if you like. You need the subconscious to learn to do those things. And that is what learning is all about. It is teaching the subconscious and delegating to it. These choices are made within the context you have created, and they don't much change that context. For example, what will I cook for dinner tonight? Fish or chicken? If you select fish over chicken, then you will take that perhaps from the freezer and thaw it out and cook it. And then the next day or the next time you're in the supermarket, you will replace the fish and not the chicken, because the fish is what you used. And in the supermarket, this fish will need to be restocked earlier and the chicken less early. So each of these decisions has rippled out into the world in some way, in some perhaps very minor way, but rippled out into the world. And you have stepped into the version of having fish for dinner tonight. And there's another version that is having chicken for dinner tonight. Both versions of reality are equally valid and real. But given the shape of the consciousness that you have chosen to play this game, you are aware consciously of only one, and that is the one that you are currently occupying. Even though simultaneously there are other versions of you in other versions of the world, following other versions of destiny, if you will. But these choices are made within the context you've created, and they don't much change that context. There's changes, but they're small. Then there are choices that intervene in the status quo. The choice to not react automatically to some event. You may think that some event has the power to make you angry or unhappy or frustrated or worried or excited. Can you see that your reaction to that is automatic? Your subconscious is reacting you to the circumstances in the way that it has learned to do. And you may choose to react differently. You are intervening in the status quo. You may make the choice to believe something new about you or your world. These choices change you and your context to some extent. Then there are the game-changing choices. The choice to be timelessly aware of who you are. The choice to step beyond the rules of space and time. Remember that we said all of these new decisions are made at the conscious level. They're made at the conscious thinking you. We'll tell you a story now about a dream. A story about a game-changing choice. A story about belief and what it really is, what knowing really is. A story that involves this one's partner Eva and the entity Theos that she channels on a nightly basis with him. It's a story about possibilities. On Monday of this week, this one had a dream. And there wasn't so much that there were people in the dream as he was aware of people being in the dream. In other words, he couldn't see them, but he was aware of himself in the dream. And he was aware of striving to do something. He doesn't know what the something was. He was just aware that he was striving to do something, and the usual difficulties were getting in his way, or the usual hurdles needed to be overcome, and so on. That was the sense of the dream as he was in this space. And then he became aware of someone else in the dream. And he discovered that that someone else was also him. And the way he knew that is because his awareness transferred to this new shape. And this new shape moved through the options in this dream like a powerful creator, like the master of the destiny of this story. He describes it later as watching someone with a touch screen moving their hands and moving things around on the screen and putting them in different places. It had that powerful feel to it. And as he was immersed in that feeling, he recognized that this was a step beyond. This was an experience of creating powerfully in the world. This was a game-changing choice that has been made confidently and powerfully. This was a story of knowing about change, of believing in change, and beyond belief to that absolute certainty, that knowing which constitutes the you, even as you know things about your world, so you know also your ability to change them. And it was an inspiring experience. And then the next night, as he was checking in with Eva and Theos in their daily check-in, which they have, he described his day and what was planned for the next day, which is the essence of this Change Your World program that we are playing with here. And he happened to at the end, to mention that he'd had the dream. And he started by saying, and I wasn't sure if it was me or something else. And before he could even finish describing that sort of duality, Theo said, "It was you." And the certainty of that sent a thrill through him. Not only because that was his sense also very strongly, but the knowledge that he was in this dance with Theos, with us, if you will, and enjoying the dance from that perspective in that moment was a very powerful one. And we have been playing with that as we move forward through this week. We've been understanding that reality because it serves him as a way of illustrating what it was that he was truly aspiring towards, what it was that he was really seeking to move to. It was a powerful experience. So what choices do you want to make? As we said earlier, when you're engaged in the details of daily existence, you might say, surely it's more useful to start by focusing on making just a few small changes in your world. Well, that's up to you. To make even small non-status quo changes, you have to understand that you are always at choice, and it helps to have some idea of the mechanism of change. And once you understand that, the size of the change becomes irrelevant. It's as easy to create a galaxy as it is to create a hot meal. And this one is perhaps inclined to strive towards those big changes, the game-changing changes, the changes that allow him to move into that role of confident creator. So think right now about the choices you made this morning. And today, as you play the game, set an intention to notice the choices you make. Of course, you will probably once again get fully engaged with so-called reality and forget all about this intention, but see how you go. And as you do, start to get some idea of what we mean by ongoing awareness. Ongoing awareness is really a subconscious / superconscious capability. And in many ways, this journey of yours towards more and more self-determination is all about getting into those other levels and enrolling the greater you as an ally of change. Good. So next week, we'll review what we discussed today and then we'll talk some more about the greater you. We're thinking we'll invite all our channels to the party, including this one's partner, Eva, channeling Theos. And the story will continue. What a hoot. We'll be with you then.
This hangout was the summary of our theme for the week, and what a theme. We do 3 live calls. We do 3 calls a week with live Q&A on our member conference line on Mondays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. You can become a member by going to the loaclub.com/join. This hangout will be followed today by continued discussion and live Q&A on our member conference line, and then over to our Change Your World participants who will be checking in. And by the way, if you'd like to see what our Change Your World program is all about, go to the loaclub.com/change your world. That call just really brought it up a notch for me, so I can barely say what I'm supposed to be saying here. So back over to you, Robin and Tara.
Good.